enforcement since 1990. In 1992, I had an odd idea to want to raise deer. A local game warden by the name of John Belsquad got me a permit through the DNR, and I bought my first deer. It was named Clyde. I got a license to raise deer. And it was a hobby. Pretty soon it turned into a business, and it turned into a pretty good business. I've been coming to Grand Rapids here for maybe 15 years with my live bucks. Most of you have seen my live bucks probably on display. Most of you have probably used my doe urine. We sell more doe urine in Grand Rapids, Minnesota than anywhere. 15 years of coming back to Glenn's Army-Navy store. My whitetail deer business that I had, my son was excited to take over my farm that turned 31 years old this spring. The last 5 years have been nothing but a fight to keep my farm alive. I worked in law enforcement. I respected people's rights. I protected the Constitution. I've worked probably 30 sexual assault cases, protecting children. And here we are, and I'm in a fight for my life to save my farm and save my business. My entertainment business, my bucks have been in Bismarck, North Dakota, Green Bay, St. Paul, St. Cloud, Wichita, Kansas, St. Louis, Missouri, all Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We had a thriving business. And the Minnesota DNR says we're going to do a 30-day ban on deer movement. We're fighting CWD. And the thing in the paper says, if you want to get a permit to go outside of this ban, contact Bob Meyer. So I get a hold of Bob. I called Bob up and I said, Bob, I have a sports show in St. Paul. He said, yeah, you can't go to the sports show. You got to forfeit your income. Well, I can't do that. I've been advertising I'm going to be there for 6 months. I have a USDA certified herd. What does that mean, you guys? The USDA comes in and says, if you test all your animals for CWD, you test their brain stems and their lymph nodes, you have an inventory, you're free to travel if you have 5 years of surveillance. I can't cross into North Dakota with 3 years of surveillance or 4. I can only go into North Dakota if I have 5. But if I buy a deer from another guy and he's only got 2 years of surveillance on the USDA program, my status falls to level 2. So I've got about 15 years of surveillance, no CWD, I've tested high numbers of deer, and Bob says I got to forfeit my income, I can't go to my sports show. That's a big problem. So what do? I asked Bob, will you look at my deer during the 30-day period? I have a closed herd. Do you know what a closed herd is? It means I haven't bought a deer onto my farm for 15 years. I closed my borders and said I will not import deer. I don't want to get a disease. That's a status, a symbol, a term that the USDA recognized. It's a closed herd. And I get extra special treatment to go into North Dakota when I have that. I get extra special treatment because I haven't had deer going across in and out of my farm. So I went even further, and I whole herd tested for TB. I whole herd test for brucellosis every 3 years. I have a clean herd. Bob says you can't go to the show. And I said, well, Bob, I'm going to go to the show, and I'm going to take your $250 fine. It's a paycheck. It's how I make my living, Bob. I got to go to the show. Well, you're going to get a fine. Bob, the law is not even just. You know what the law says, you guys? They drafted up an emergency order. They published it in the state recorder's office. And I'm going to finish with this real quick, but I want to give you the history of why we're here. The law says that the Commissioner of Natural Resources may control domestic animals that may be spreading disease. They took that language, stuck it in the emergency rule, and shut down my business. I told Bob, I said, you only used half the statute, Bob. You forgot the last half. What's the last half? The statute says the Commissioner of Natural Resources may control domestic animals, my deer, that may be spreading disease, that have been turned loose, set free, or are running at large. There's not one law enforcement officer in the state that writes a ticket and uses half the language in the statute. So I get my ticket when I get down there. I end up in the St. Paul court. The St. Paul attorney dismisses my ticket. He says they don't have a leg to stand on. Before I was at the show, a judge comes up to me at the show. We're talking. You're in all the papers. Ex-sheriff fighting with the DNR, doesn't care about CWD. I said, what do you think of my case? I researched the law. They don't have a leg to stand on. So I do a complaint on Sarah Stroman for lying under oath and leaving out half the statute. And what happens? I do a complaint on Sarah. They drag me back into court in Ramsey County on the same charge. I go in front of a new judge. ITV hearing, guess which judge it is? Same guy I saw at the sports show. He says, hey, I talked to Steve Porter at the show. I can't be involved in this, I'll remove myself. He removes himself. We get a third judge. And the judge says, we have a ruling on whether they have authority, and that judge says, the DNR can do any and all things to control and protect their wildlife. My attorney says you're going to lose in court. We'll have to take it to the Supreme Court. I've already had this ticket dismissed. I already had a judge tell me they don't have a leg to stand on. And nobody writes tickets with half the statute. The judge rules the DNR can do whatever they want. Okay? He says we're going to lose the case. You got to plead guilty. I'll get you a plea bargain. Okay. What does that look like? Well, it'll be a $200 fine, $300 fine. I said, no, I want 90 days in jail. Why do you want 90 days in jail? I'm going to demand I get 90 days in jail. I'm fighting for my 30-year-old farm. Unjustly, I've been shut down. You guys, when we have a TB outbreak in Stime, Minnesota, and the cattle are infected, which we've had, what happens? We shut down the farms that have been linked to that have tracebacks. We shut that cattle farm down, they kill off some deer in the area, and they control the TB. What did we do with the deer? We got CWD somewhere, shut everybody down in the state. Shut them down. No exceptions. Then the DNR does another movement ban, and another. You guys that saw my deer in Grand Rapids, guess what? You'll never see them again, my business is dead. Nobody will do business with me when I've had to break so many contracts over 3 movement bans. I did everything right, and yet we're attacked and shut down. And some of you guys say, well, CWD is very serious. I agree. I want to solve CWD. But how come with TB in cattle, we don't do a broad sweeping shutdown of every cattle farm in the state? We don't do that, do we? So, I've been reaching out to MDHA. They're lobbying against shutting me down, rules. We can't even have a discussion. I go to the Capitol many times, and the legislators tell us, would your deer farming board please sit down with the deer hunters board and have a discussion? Please, would you guys do that? So our president emails over to MDHA. We don't even get responses. We can't have a meeting. No meetings, no nothing. No response. And then they rush off to the Capitol to pass more legislation against us that will cripple and destroy family farms in Minnesota without us even getting a word in it when our legislators are telling us to have a meeting. So I'm very pleased to see so much MDHA in the room. We're finally going to have a discussion. It's fantastic. Thank you for coming. I want a nice discussion because we're going to make progress today. So I'm going to go through my seminar. I thank Jared for coming. Thank you for coming, Jared. I've been kind of hard on you online, hoping to amp you up so we could have a meeting. And by gosh, here we are. It's thanks for coming.
A little bit hard on Jared. I think to start the night off, you ought to maybe make a public apology.
Yeah, how about, hey, I got an idea.
You
Yay,
were caught red-handed on Baldface Live.
Lies.
And I actually posted his thing on your site, and you took it down.
Can I say something?
Please, I want to hear it.
Yeah. How about you guys apologize for running 500 farms out of business?
No, don't change the subject.
Is
you
this
posted things that were totally untrue,
is this
and then you want us to come here and listen to you. If you can't stand up and be a man right now,
come on, let's get
your
me and you on camera together. Let's both be on film.
Yeah,
turn the camera around.
Absolutely.
Come on, scream at me now.
No, I'm not going to scream at
Scream at me.
you. Did you not post a video blog on your site?
I posted lots of stuff on my site.
Did you post a video vlog that talked about MDHA, said that Jared worked for a anti-hunting organization?
I believe he did.
I
believe he did.
Even after he showed you that he did.
I believe it is an anti-hunting organization.
Did he work for them?
Well, Jared, you come over and ask him.
Resume. You wanted me and you. Let's do this.
Yeah, on his resume.
He said he was what?
Here's what you're doing. You're hijacking the presentation. We got a whole presentation.
I want to hear if you're actually credible.
Okay.
Because I came here to listen to you, but if you're not even a credible source and you believe in putting out misinformation, and then you want us to come together and listen to you? If you're credible, you'll say, I said things that were incorrect.
Well, just listen now, just listen, okay? Thanks for the rant, okay?
Oh, because mine's a rant, but you get on social media and tell your bullshit,
I've
and
been
that's not a rant.
trying to have a meeting for 5 years.
I don't care, don't change the subject. Did you not, when you watched that and I posted it on your site, and you immediately tear it down,
Let me just say this.
did you not say this information about
Can I
Jared?
respond?
Yes,
Can I
please.
respond? Listen,
I'm
his
listening.
resume that he has online said that he worked for so many years for this company. It said from a date to a date, and I can say, oh, he worked there for that long, and I put it online. And now you're saying, oh, you only volunteered there. But it didn't say that.
And you said that it was an anti-hunting organization.
Yeah, I still
What's
believe-
your
I still
name?
believe
Who
that.
are you?
Why does that matter?
His name is Joe Canella, and I know Joe a long time, and Joe's been against, we talked a lot about deer farming.
I'm
He was part of
happy
it.
to listen to
I like-
you. Steve, I was the one who helped you get MDHA chapters that paid thousands of dollars for you to bring
And
your
what
schools.
did we do, Joe?
It was great stuff. It was great stuff then.
How many schools did we go to?
It was
100
dozens.
schools. No,
Yeah.
100 schools,
Over
Joe.
time, yeah.
100.
Yeah.
To teach
And did
kids
wonderful,
about deer.
good, real
That
educational
was
stuff.
awesome.
Okay,
Real.
okay, sit down so we can hear those two talk. I didn't come here to listen to you.
Yeah, because
I mean, but at some point, we can do that.
we start with the truth, Steve. Then
Let's start with the truth.
We can have a conversation after, let's just get
Yes.
Steve on this program.
Board treasurer, correct?
I'm not the treasurer.
Not anymore.
No. So wait a minute.
Never
I
was,
want
I
to know the
was.
dialogue that we're gonna go through.
Yeah.
If we're gonna have a debate and totally forego the presentation I have, are we not gonna do the presentation?
I'm totally fine with that.
Should we do the presentation?
Yes.
Let's do it.
If it ain't all lies?
I mean, let's just stick to the facts.
Okay, so I just want to show you the presentation, and then I want to have you come up, and I wanted to hear from you, okay? I think we should have some sense of order.
Alright?
I've been begging and emailing and calling, trying to have, why would you ignore having a meeting with us?
Yeah, I just think it's a little comical that now you're being polite and wanting.
Right.
Yeah.
And then-
Anybody would like to see the link of this thing?
Yeah, and I'm here today, aren't I?
Yeah,
So
so
I'm
you're.
fighting for my farm.
Yeah, and you came up with this-
Okay, so Steve, he's here right now. Let's get on with the presentation. Let Jared answer the question.
Keyboard cowboy is what I would like to call you.
Okay.
Because you're really brave behind your computer. And
Oh,
You
Amen.
can
Come on,
one
pretty,
tough
Steve.
question. You can't.
Come on.
I'm handling everything just fine.
But everything you How old are you? How old am I?
Yes.
I'm 31.
So you, this dude's been dealing with deer as long as he's been alive.
He's
I
been
think
farming
we should sit
here.
down. This dude, because
Here.
experience says
Okay,
everything.
should we
Let's
consider,
watch this.
I have a question.
In my job description, the requirements for my job, it says you need to revolve around the sun X amount of times. My age doesn't matter.
Oh, it sure
My
does.
experience.
How old do you have to be before he's intelligent?
Guys,
Is it
guys,
more-
I'm not
how
saying
old are
he's
you?
right.
How old are you?
I'm 33. I'm not
And
saying
so,
he's
but
not
you're older than
intelligent.
this, so you got the right to
All I
put
did
him
is state a
down?
fact. Like, all I did is state a fact. He's been doing this as long as he's been alive. Is that a fact?
Doesn't
make him right. Alright, so let's hear the guy.
No, he said he started in
Hey,
19, whatever.
hey,
Yeah.
can we go through the presentation, and then you can come up, and we'll
I
talk.
came
You
to
wanna do
this
that?
guy, not everybody else here.
Yes?
But I would appreciate when we get questions that you address. So, that's all I'm asking.
That'd be awesome, but are we gonna derail it and be here till 9 o'clock at night? My
That's
presentation,
it.
it'll
We want to
take,
assemble it,
it'll
right?
I'm gonna say, it'll take 35 minutes for me to get through this, maybe, and then we can have you come up.
Let's do it.
All right, fantastic. Is that what we wanna do? Do we agree on that?
Yep.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. As I was saying, we had 700 farms in Minnesota. 700 farms that were dairy farms, cattle farms, pig farms, and they switched over to alternative livestock, raising white-tailed deer. We're tightly regulated by the USDA, by the Minnesota Board of Animal Health. We follow tight, strict guidelines. We went from 700 farms down to less than 150. And these farms are disappearing, and we say we live in a democracy, and we gotta protect the wild deer. We have good science and good things available, and I'm gonna share a lot of that with you tonight, okay? I talked already about the USDA protocols. I have to have 5 years of surveillance before I can cross the state line. I talked about having a closed herd. It didn't matter, my farm was still Detroit. Nobody cares about that. That's okay. Breeding for genetic resistance. What's going on there? We take DNA samples off our deer, we send them in, we get them tested. There are genetic markers. There was a farm in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is full of CWD. It's not everywhere on every inch, but I think they've had 28,000 cases of positive CWD in Wisconsin. I think that's the number. And they say they've tested about 10% of their herd since maybe it was 2002. Okay? The farm that came up with CWD was Wilderness Whitetails, fleece farms. And they allowed him to stay in business because he didn't sell off the farm, and he was able to still continue having hunts. He went from, I think it was a 60% prevalence rate. He started switching over his genetic markers to SS's and HH. The most common genome in the wild is a GG. He started switching them over. Last year, he had in excess of 50 hunts. All of the deer are drinking out of the same waters. They're drinking out of the same feeder, eating out of the same feeders. They're sleeping in the same areas. They're licking and grooming. He had 0 deer come out of his preserve with CWD. 0. After getting his markers switched over. That shows progress. But when we're happy to say we're making progress with genetic resistance in deer, the Minnesota DNR says they don't agree with, that's not good science. Your deer will just be infected longer and spread prions longer, is that what they claim. I have a sheet here, and I'm going to hand this out to everybody in the room. It's this one right here. We've got them on the table, and you can hand them out later. That's fine. So last week there was a hearing at the Capitol, okay? And there's a Dr. Osterholm who works for the University of Minnesota. And he's presenting information to the DNR, and he's presenting information that MDHA it's trickling in, and it's having impacts on decisions on how you regulate your deer herd. But this Dr. Seabury here, you can read it. It says, I'm going to read a couple highlights here, okay? And this is in response to testimony that's gone on at the Capitol. He says, to date, my research programs have garnered more than $26 million as project director out of the Texas A&M. $26 million he's garnered for grant and research in CWD. And then he goes on and he talks a lot. I'm just reading the highlights. You can read this, okay? Because I want you guys to have this as information to help steer you in what to do with the wild deer herd. In summary, Dr. Osterholm and his colleagues are operating well outside of the area of their expertise. In truth, they would not even be considered qualified peer reviewers of our scientific manuscripts or competitive grants. I find the motivation of Dr. Osterholm's letter to be professionally dubious. And you can read through there later on, take it home. At the very end of it, he says, after reviewing your article, my scientific decision must be major revision of what you've been saying, or perhaps even worse. These aren't my words. What I'm telling you guys and why I'm pointing this out is because the Minnesota DNR and the rules that are being made that affect our deer herd, which rules? They won't even meet criteria. Our deer are being shot all across our state. We have a ban on feeding, that our deer are starving to death in the northern part of the state, and nobody's really saying or doing anything. And they're not acting in good science in many, many areas. I'm asking you guys from MDHA, there are other sources of scientific literature that you should maybe be seeking out, okay? So, let me continue.
Steve, I got a quick question for you. Do you think that MDHA is the only organization lobbying at the state capitol?
No, I think there's probably others as well.
And I guess my biggest problem with some of what you're saying is this isn't MDHA that is shutting you down. This is, like you said at the beginning, this is the DNR, this is the state. This is not MDHA. We are like the high school sports, you are like the NFL. Most everybody in this room is never gonna be able to afford to hunt at one of your deer farms. We're all about protecting the wild deer, and I hear some of what you're saying.
And I hope you're coming through an audio, because what you're saying makes good sense, and I appreciate what you're saying. However, you guys are still endorsing a bill for me to be double fenced. And so if you're gonna endorse a bill that says I gotta spend 250 grand in double fence, I can't afford it. Yes?
Steve, I got a question. When it comes to your theory of genetic resistance and how you can eradicate CWD from the wild deer herd, at that point, are you not eradicating wild deer in its entirety?
So I think your question showed up on microphone, but the thing is, it's not my research, it's not my theory, and I'm not saying that we can fix the problem in CWD in the wild deer and replace all the wild deer with genetically resistant deer. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is on my farm, I am breeding to survive my farm, genetically resistant deer.
I understand that, Steve. I'm a
Right.
small business owner myself. I've had the state step in on numerous occasions. For anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Alice. My husband and myself operate a guide service here just outside the area. In Reamer, Minnesota, we're located 2 miles north of Reamer. We operate a hunting and fishing guide service all year round. I guide black bear, grouse hunting, and fishing year round. I know what it's like for the state to step in, but if it's for the betterment of what we pursue, is it not realistic? I mean,
So
that's what I'm
I know.
asking. I've almost been threatened to be shut down, Steve, from what I offer. Is what I'm asking is, as a small business operator, I can really relate to you. I empathize with you, in fact. Not to the degree, I don't get the kind of money that you get for one of your hunts, but when you say that you can, because first and foremost, I'm a deer hunter. I enjoy the chase of a true, natural, wild northern deer. I mean, there's been a number of years where I haven't got a deer, but I still enjoy the hunt. And when you sit there and make comments that you can eradicate CWD from the wild deer herd,
I don't think I said that I can eradicate from the wild deer
a
herd.
theory.
But I don't think I said that. We can rewind the tape. I don't think I said that. What I said is...
Maybe not tonight, but you have said it in previous posts. I mean,
So
at
we
which
can-
point,
I
I mean, we're
appreciate what you're
discussing eradicating wild deer in that aspect. And, I mean,
I think what he's saying is, he's doing the genetic resistant testing in his farm.
to
which is-
save his
No,
farm.
hold on, which is a controlled group, because it's in the walls of his farm. Well, once he can do it in his farm, that knowledge, not just Steve's knowledge, because Steve's learning it from veterinarian people,
Absolutely.
people that study CWD in depth. Steve goes out and reaches out to him and learns that. He pulls it back, does it in his farm. People in Wisconsin do it in their farm. And what the deer farmers, what Steve's showing here is the genetic resistance that research could be brought into the wild whitetails, because I hunt wild whitetails, he hunts wild whitetails, everyone in this room, I'm guessing,
Hunts
so-
wild
right.
whitetails, right?
But the idea is we have to do it in a controlled environment, just like a zoo will bring an animal in there to learn and study it. Well, Steve's one of our greatest resources is outdoorsman, and every other deer farm, because what he's gonna do is find how to genetically test, and it's on his dime right now.
I don't discredit that at
So
all.
what he's saying is.
I do
Can
not
I
discredit
interject?
that at all.
Let me interject. There's so much that I can add to this. If we can wait with the questions just a little bit, I can explain it so well as we move through this, okay?
Yep.
And then we won't have to backtrack and come back to it. Scrapie in sheep is the sheep version of CWD. Scrapie in sheep was eradicated off the landscape. Don't take my word for it.
You're talking to a farmer, Steve. You can talk to other people in the crowd.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, I'm just
So-
saying, do you know that scrapie in sheep was the sheep version of CWD?
absolutely.
It was eradicated through what? Genetic resistance breeding, and I just handed you a pamphlet. You guys could call Dr. Seabury, and you could say, hey, can we have a Zoom meeting with our chapter? We want to know the research is going. Well, all I'm saying is, please don't just reach out to Dr. Olsterholm in the cities. Read this, find some stuff, and get excited, because we can make progress is what I'm telling you. I can make progress on my farm. That's all I want. I wanted to have a farm. It's 31 years old. My farm's being taken from me. I'm in a fight for my life. I want to fight to save my clean, healthy farm. That's what I
How many
want.
wild sheep do you see around, Steve?
Say that again?
How many wild sheep are there in Minnesota?
I have
Thank you,
6 of
Jared.
them.
Six.
Yep.
Six wild sheep.
Okay, so,
Six
hey,
Transcaspian wild sheep. I
Yeah.
own them. And guess what? You know what the regulations are? Ask the DNR. Ask Board of Animal Health. The regulations are, they're the same as a nice farm wool sheep. Guess where they're at? They're right in Itasca County. Wild sheep. You want to see a picture?
no, let's stay on track.
Let's not
Jared,
get sidetracked.
Jared, when we're done, I would like you to come and ask me these questions, because what we're doing is, when you yell from the back, nobody heard the question.
Nobody yelled.
No, when you stated calmly from the back, when you stated calmly from,
University thing you threw,
Yeah.
out, that would make good toilet paper.
okay,
Any farmer worth their salt knows that any university study is biased. Because the only way they do a study is if they're funded by one side or the other.
but, okay,
The only ones of these that are good are done by an independent company.
okay, so,
You should know that.
nobody knows your question, it wasn't on video, we didn't get it in audio. You said the research paper is worth toilet paper. I'll repeat what you said. The research paper I handed out where he gets $26 million in grants is worth toilet paper. Everybody take this research paper, crumple it up and throw it away. I'm sorry I handed it out.
Steve.
No, just throw it away. What's your name?
You should know
What's your
that.
name?
What's your name?
Steve Porter, what's your name? I'm asking your name.
Why don't you answer what I said?
Throw it in the
You should
garbage.
know.
Use it as toilet
You
paper.
should know that these
Use it
are
as
biased.
toilet paper. It's fine. Throw it away.
Am I wrong?
You're wrong. Throw it away. I asked your
Why am I
name.
wrong? You should know that as a
I
farmer.
I asked your name. You're just hijacking. I just want to get through the presentation. Why can't we do that?
You're wrong by saying you don't know that.
I don't know what.
What I said.
Wow, my word.
University studies are biased because they're funded.
So, okay, so he's saying a university study from the Texas A&M is biased, it's garbage, throw it away in the toilet paper, okay? This is garbage, okay? Can I try to get through the presentation?
Steve, can I interrupt just?
Go ahead.
Steve, okay, Steve Porter here, he came on his own accord down here to be here with you guys. Can you please, I would like to be the moderator tonight to kind of keep it, I'm a hunting guy, so I understand here. I've been a life member of Minnesota Deer Hunters Association for many years. Let's just give him the time, and let's do, Chris, questions and answers after. Otherwise, we're gonna be here till 9 o'clock tonight. We got a long ways to drive home, some of us, okay?
Agreed.
So is that okay, Steve?
I would love to get through this
So
and
no more
then have a
interruptions,
question and
questions
answer.
and after that, will you? Thank you.
So as I was saying, we're breeding for genetic resistance. I'm hoping to save my farm. The model of science, it did eradicate sheep from our nation from having scrapie, and it can do the same thing with deer. Now, I'm not saying every wild deer, but if you want to look at genetic resistance, if you're concerned about it, there's a pocket of deer in Michigan. And the pocket of deer in Michigan have more SS markers, I've been told, than any other part. There's another part in Texas that have SS markers. Why is it that there's these SS markers in Texas and Michigan? Maybe, I'm saying maybe, if CWD has been around forever, and it's been here longer than we think, maybe Mother Nature came through and killed off all the GG animals, and the only ones left were SS's, and they started breeding other SS marker deer, or HH, and now we have pockets of resistant animals in certain parts of the US. To me, that is hopeful. But if we come in and kill all the deer in a particular area, we're actually slowing down Mother Nature, because natural selection would kill off the deer with the wrong genetic markers, and it would allow the ones with the right genetic markers to live. I'm not telling you that I can save all the wild deer, but I'm telling you Mother Nature has built it in the beginning for protection to be in place through killing off the animals with the wrong markers, okay? Do wolves transport CWD? We're here because, A, I'm fighting for my farm. I got people calling me mad about wolves. We got wolf problems all over the state. we have a big wolf problem. Earlier, one of the guys in back asked me a question about wolves. I said, we'll discuss it here now. Okay, so now we're going to talk about wolves real quick. It is a known fact that CWD prions survive the intestinal tract of a carnivore, and they ultimately spread CWD. The prions are in the feces. The wolf goes to the woods in the bathroom. He puts feces out. Vegetation grows off the fertilizer, and the deer come along and they can eat the feces, the vegetation with the prions. Okay? I misspoke there, but they can eat the vegetation and they can spread CWD through the feces of a wolf. So the question is, how many wolves do we have? Jared quoted a number. He could be right. In an article he said that the best estimates were there were 2,700. He could be wrong. I talked to a federal trapper in Kitson County. He caught 60 wolves on one ranch. All the federal trappers were struggling to catch except for this old guy. He was catching them left and right. I asked him. He knows wolf trapping. How many wolves do you think there are in Minnesota? 10,000? Easily. Now you guys are in the room. I don't know what you're seeing on your land. But people are emailing me because I'm causing a fuss online. They're saying, Steve, where do we turn? I have one deer that I've seen all deer season. I used to see 30. So I think we can agree, as people who don't agree, we got too many wolves. I think we can come together on that issue, okay? So if we have too many wolves, let's take a look at it. Here's a track of a wolf. Okay, you guys have probably seen this. This isn't the first time it's been around. But I want to point something out. The wolf was collared right here. There's its track. It went around. Okay? It made its loops. If we put 10,000 more lines on this map, or 2,700, I don't care, pick a number of what you think there are for wolves. How many lines would we have on that map? They'd be all over the place. It'd be full of lines. But they told me there was a CWD wild deer discovered in Grand Rapids and now 2. Is this about where Grand Rapids is, guys? Am I close on my guess there? Do you see how the wolf went through that area? Am I close or am I off? Then there was south of Bemidji, CWD found out. Did the wolf go close to there? And then there was one found up here in Climax, right up here. Now, I'm not telling you that this wolf spread CWD in those 3 locations that the deer got CWD. I'm not telling you that. You know what I am telling you? I'm telling you if we multiply this map times 2,700 or multiply it times 10,000, these wolves, to them, there's a system, a route, why they pass. And if they're over here in Wisconsin eating on something and it survives in their intestinal tract, they're spreading CWD all over our state. That's what I'm telling you.
Hey Steve, where does this map come from?
I don't even know. I knew at the time, was it Voyager's Wolf Project maybe?
Okay.
Yeah, I knew at the time.
We can look it up.
Yeah.
We can look it up and find it.
And then I added the 3 wild deer. Governor Walz was just at a convention, talking on outdoor news radio. All the CWD in the state goes back to deer farms. But these 3 don't. Okay, they don't. This is another wolf track right here. I just wanted to show it just for the fun of it, okay? Interesting how far they move. They move a long ways. Could an eagle land on a deer, eat CWD meat, fly 100 miles and make deposits? It could, couldn't it? Minnesota DNR allow hunters to possess and spread CWD. So I got a question. The lobbyist for MDHA is wanting me to double fence. They're wanting a bunch of stuff that's going to put me out of business. I'm going to lose my farm. I'm going to lose a 31-year-old farm. The writing is on the wall. Okay? And that's fine. But I'm still fighting. Okay? But if we're going to make laws that would seriously impact the fight in CWD, there's laws that would be better than saying Steve can't bring his deer to Grand Rapids, Glenn's Army Navy anymore. There'd be a better law than that one. Okay? So, here's a spreadsheet I did on a data request. I did a data request. It may be public information. You could have maybe got it without a data request. This is the DNR wild cases of deer that have occurred since 2010. And if we scroll down, you'll see in this column over here, it was only active and current until the date of my data request, which was, it looks like 2021. What's important on this map is, if I scroll over to the right, and you look here, it says at the land, what happened to this deer?
And these are all CWD positive deer.
All CWD positive deer. We got, let me scroll down just a little bit more here. There. The carcass disposition. What happened to the carcass and what happened to the venison? This is a DNR chart. This one was digested at the University of Minnesota, the carcass. The meat was digested. But if we look down here, the meat was retained by the hunter on this one example. They said, hey, can we have your meat? It's got CWD, and the hunter said, no, I want to keep it. Okay, he retained it. What happened here? They don't know. What happened here? They don't know. Let's scroll up. Unknown, unknown. What happened? You can read. Landscape, unknown, unknown, unknown. Then we go down, it's retained, retained, unknown, unknown, retained, 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 retained. A lot of retaining going on. Unknowns, unknowns. A lot more retained by hunter. I think there's probably 30, I'm guessing, 30 examples of hunters retaining and keeping the meat from a CWD infected deer. We just got done talking how about the prions can survive the digestive tract of a carnivore. Nobody argues that point. We know that's true. So here's my question. When the state, university, DNR, whoever contacts the hunter and says, your deer has CWD, we would like to take the meat. The hunter says, no, you're not taking it. That happened 30 times. I'm guessing. It might be 40. Why did the hunter say, no, you can't take the meat? He might just be being obstinate. But when the state official leaves and the hunter turns to his wife, she says, what's that about? The deer meat we have in the freezer has CWD. And the wife says, most likely the wife says, we're not eating that meat. Why did you give it to him? I don't like the DNR. I don't like the state. No, I'm not cooperating. So what does the guy and the wife do with it? In most cases, I'm going to say it gets thrown out. Fed to the family dog or unwrapped and thrown out in the tree row. That's what I'm going to tell you happens. Why isn't there somebody pushing for a law that says if your deer comes back positive, you can't keep the meat? Why don't we have that law in the books? Would that be a better law than saying Steve can't do sport shows and go to Glenn's Army Navy with his deer?
That would first start with the law saying that every single deer shot in the state of Minnesota has to be CWD tested.
Well, I'm not saying that because what it is these are ones that were tested that they have proof.
That they have
Are you okay with the hunters retaining the meat? That's a question.
I don't know. I'm a hunter. I retain the meat.
Have you ever had a positive?
I've never.
These
had
are
a positive.
all positive deer. These are positive deer.
What about the science that says that the prions live in the gray matter and the spinal cord that you cannot remove?
I think my
the area.
Sorry.
I got a question in back that I can't hear.
What about the fact of the scientific matter that states that prions live in the gray matter and the spinal cord that you cannot remove legally from the CWD zone?
Okay, so
There's no scientific evidence that states it lives in the meat. The only scientific evidence that we have so far is the gray matter and the spinal cord.
okay, so what she said was, and repeat for the viewing audience, she said there's only scientific proof that says the CWD prions live in the spinal cord and the brain, and it doesn't live in the meat. That's not true. The CWD prions are in the meat, and when a wolf eats the meat, the wolf gets it in his stomach and spreads it around. The prions are in the meat. Okay?
They eat the spinal cord and the brain matter and everything.
The wolf eats the brain stem and the spinal cord and everything. It's
I'm
also in the meat.
sorry.
Okay, it's also in the meat, okay?
That was all.
All right, thank you. My question was simple. Should there be a law? I'm just asking. Should we allow hunters to retain CWD proven infected meat? That's just a simple question. Okay?
Even more troubling is the number of carcasses and meat that were apparently hauled to landfill.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Let's be careful.
Right. So let's keep going here. So what does the DNR do when they have a suspected positive deer? I did a data request on Lou Cornicelli. I intercepted this email. Who's this email from? This email is from a guy, it looks like, it appears that it's a DJ, let me split that around there. It looks like it's a DJ Votts. Or could it be, I'm asking, could it be Jim Votts, Northland Whitetails? Jim Votts, who's on the Board of Animal Health. Waltz recruited Jim Votts to be on the Board of Animal Health to rein in the dirty deer farmers. I think that's Jim Votts. I'm not sure, but I'm guessing because he's friends with Lou Cornicelli. A radio-collared deer is found dead on his land. It's thin, it's sick. He's concerned about it. He calls up this nice girl, Kelsey, and she does a report. She goes out there. What does Kelsey suspect? Kelsey suspects that this deer has CWD. She goes out there, and in her report, she says, the buck had a wound on his front limb that was potentially infected. He was also in pretty poor body condition. I broke a femur open to take a peek at the marrow, and it looks like he's been going downhill for some time. When I skinned back part of his neck, there were some puncture marks near his throat, so coyotes were likely nearby at the time of his death. I took lymph nodes for what? CWD testing, and sent them to the lab today. But otherwise, I left him on your property to return to nature. Do we think that the DNR should go put up a $200,000 fence around that area? What do you guys think? I'm just asking, it's just a question. CWD is infectious, we don't want the deer to get it. We've got proof right here of the DNR suspecting CWD.
Make sure it has a top so the birds and everything else can't get it.
Right? I'm just saying, this is what the DNR did, okay? So the DNR decides that the dumpsters are, the carcasses are a bad deal. We don't want them laying on the land. We're going to put adopt a dumpster programs out there. Adopt a dumpster programs are going to keep CWD prions from being in the meat, and they're going to be going on to the land. So if you want to get rid of your carcass, your ribs, your bones, we're going to put a dumpster out there. That's a good program, right? Sounds good? And by state law, you have to have a liner in the dumpster. You can't have blood running out of the dumpster. That's state law. A meat packing plant, when they have a dumpster for carcasses, it has to have an approved liner. You can get a fine for operating a dumpster, putting meat carcasses without a liner. Are you with me? Adopt a dumpster, bring your carcasses in. So now I got to get out of here just for a second. Stay with me. I had trouble with this one playing earlier, and I'll probably have trouble again. So this is a CWD carcass dumpster that the DNR manages. There's blood and meat. Michelle Karstensen testified that this specific dumpster did in fact have a CWD positive deer in it. The Minnesota DNR runs a dumpster, and it has a positive deer in it. We got rain after this, an inch or two of rain. It washes all this off and goes into the pond behind this lot. My question is, should we put up a $200,000 fence around this lot? What do you guys think?
Video, Steve?
Huh?
Who took this video and where's the evidence that it had a CWD in there?
I can get it for you.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it is. Michelle Karstensen testified. She testified to it at a hearing, and when she was jumped on this, she said, but this isn't a CWD area, so we can't do any harm. There's already CWD there, so it doesn't matter. But as a small business owner, if you had a dumpster and it didn't have a liner, would you get in trouble? Do you see a liner on this one?
It depends on who took the video.
You think they hid the liner?
No liner.
Okay.
Well, there definitely isn't a liner under that pile on the ground.
Okay.
I guess I'd say the one they had in Hell Moon last year didn't have a liner in it.
Right. So all I want to do is point out, you guys, the deer farm, my farm's being held to such a high standard. I'm being run out of business, and nobody else is paying attention. I'm under the critical spotlight, run him out of business, steal his income, take my farm away from my kid. It's a 31-year-old farm, and let's not talk about all the other real issues. Let's just go after the deer farmers, okay? And I don't think it's fair, okay? So, you guys have probably seen this. What is this? Do you know what it is? Chronic wasting is in this area. These dots don't indicate chronic wasting. But in Dane, Richland, Iowa, and Sauk counties, right there, those 4 counties, they're the epicenter of CWD in Wisconsin. And when hunters traveled to Wisconsin to hunt, they did a zip code search. And they said, who's hunting in Wisconsin and where are they from? And they put the zip code results down on this map. And they said, I wonder, when we punched the zip code, they looked down the tip of Florida. A guy from Florida traveled all the way to Wisconsin and bought a license in Wisconsin. And traveled back to Wisconsin, back to Florida. When that guy shot a deer in Wisconsin, you think maybe he shot a deer right down here. He probably brought the deer back with him. Do you think he brought it to a butcher plant, or do you think he processed it himself? We have no way of knowing. But if he processed it himself, do you think he fed the meat to his dog, the bones, scraps? Every one of these dots indicate that someone went right here in Wisconsin and potentially harvested a deer.
Every one of those dots says you hunted from Wisconsin. How did you draw that?
Well, because it says from the USGS here, it says on the top, it says home zip codes of hunters harvesting deer in not all of Wisconsin, but the 4 endemic counties of Dane, Iowa, Richland, and Sauk. These dots only go back to the 4 worst counties. I didn't draw a conclusion. It's a USGS map.
People hunted there, and that's where they're from.
And that's harvested a deer, not just hunted deer, that's actually harvested.
Harvesting a deer, it says on top. This is information online. They harvested a deer in the endemic area, and did they leave it there or take it home? But the state's response is, Lou Corticelli, let's not talk about this. Let's shut Steve Porter down and he can't bring his deer. Let's destroy that business and give him a ticket for bringing his deer to a show.
So who's supposed to stop that movement, I guess?
Well, I'm just saying, it looks like blatant hypocrisy to me. Okay?
It's on the hunter's good authority. Is every hunter good? No. Is every hunter gonna follow every rule? No. And we all have to be honest on that.
Well, I mean, but what's the rule? I own property in Alaska. If I go shoot a moose up there, is it
Minnesota,
contraband to bring it back to the state?
Minnesota, you can't bring a carcass into the state. How many people actually follow that?
Not a carcass, but I'm saying
You can
packed and processed meat.
It's in
I think you can bring his brainstem back.
Brainstem, spinal cords, that stuff, no, you cannot. You can only bring back deboned meat. I'm not sure on the quartering, if you can bring a
That's
quartering.
what I'm saying is deboned meat. Yeah, these hunters may have got a deer.
And they may have fed it to their dog when they got home a year after it's freezer boned. They may have fed it to, we don't know, that's the point.
Yeah,
We don't know where it
we
went.
don't know.
Okay, so what do we got here? What we've got here, you guys, is this is the deer feeding restriction. And I handed you out this study that isn't worth toilet paper and should be thrown in the garbage from Texas A&M. I handed you out this paperwork, okay? Throw that paperwork away because it's no good. This is good because it's from the DNR. Okay? They say we can't, there's no deer feeding because we're worried about CWD. Deer can't touch noses. They can't touch noses. But deer are social groomers. On my farm, they're licking noses all the time. They lick each other on the hocks. They're social groomers licking behind the ears. They're going to do it when you're not looking in the woods. Deer are breeding and frolicking and exchanging spit, okay? So if we look on here, the DNR says we don't want no deer feeding in these areas. But if you guys go back and you research, and some of you gentlemen in this room, you know what you were involved in? Probably older than me, and I give you credit. MDHA started a winter deer feeding program. 50 cents on every license was appropriated to do emergency winter feeding. I wasn't involved in that. I think it's a great program. But the money has only been used, I think, twice. But if you go back and you search, the first article is after you MDHA people got this deer feeding program in play. Thank you. Did you guys not lobby for it?
No, but Minnesota deer hunters, every deer hunter that buys a license pays into that.
Correct.
That's not Minnesota deer hunters.
No. You're correct. But I'm thanking you guys for getting that program going. And his clarification is, it's not just Minnesota Deer Hunters Association paying 50 cents, it's every deer license. Of course, I know that. But thank you for getting the program rolling, okay? But you're correct, okay? My point is, if you go back in and you look at the early articles, they'll tell you that Minnesota DNR is a reluctant partner in the deer feeding program. And you're nodding your head up and down, am I right?
We are.
They were reluctant before there was ever CWD. Yes, they were. That's what the articles say.
And they're hanging on to a lot of money that should be opened up for.
Amen. What he just said for the viewing audience, they're holding on to a lot of money that should be opened up for deer feeding. You're correct. And guess what? The DNR should have never took the money. Who should have kept it? Your sportsman's club should have took the $200,000 a year and held it within house. And then people say, oh, we got a winter severity index. I don't care about the winter severity index. Who said that's right? My wild deer are starving long before that thing gets right.
Your wild deer?
The wild deer are in trouble long before. My wild deer on my land that are laying around my house are in trouble. But you want me to say public land deer that are laying around? I mean, maybe I used the wrong term. The wild deer on my property are starving long before the winter severity index comes into play. What I want to point out here is, do you see on this map right here? Could I say that climax is about right here? You see that red dot? There was a case of CWD right there. They have no rhyme or reason. A guy sent in a couple, 3 brain stems and lymph nodes, and it came back positive. A hunter decided to send him in. And where's Grand Rapids? Are we over here somewhere?
Fantastic.
Right there?
Right at the elbow.
Right
Right
there.
at the elbow.
Right there, up higher?
No, down.
Down, right here?
No, right there.
Okay, so Itasca had CWD, and look at this, in Polk County, and look at this. I can still feed in Kitson County, I can feed deer. Why can I feed deer when I'm closer to the CWD than Roseau County? Can any of you make sense of that? This is a scientific map put out by the DNR. Here's my next question. Mille Lacs County right here, no deer feeding and no attractants in Mille Lacs County.
That's curling.
And you can't do anything in Morrison. But over here in Stearns, you can feed, you can't feed just no deer urine. But for some reason, this area here, you can do whatever you want. You guys, does this make any scientific sense to you whatsoever? Is anybody gonna tell me this makes sense? No takers on that one?
Nope.
It doesn't make an ounce of sense, you guys. Our deer are starving in the Northland in the winter. They're starving, and we're not allowed to feed them because they might touch noses, spread some spit, and then what? They might possibly get a disease that's 1 out of 100,000 deer. Let them all starve first. I'm righteously upset about this, you guys. If you guys aren't,
In the process, we all starve too.
what's that?
In the process, we all starve, because I can't shoot my deer,
Right.
you know. I can't afford to go to your farm and hunt and eat a deer, so I wanna go to
Your food source is disappearing.
Yeah,
Right.
so, I wanna go with you and show me where all the deer are.
So
I feel
she's,
like-
her comment for the viewing audience is, when they don't let my deer be fed, her deer starve. But then she doesn't get to harvest a deer because there's no deer left. I'm saying this back for the viewing audience. Thank you for your comment. Okay, so if I go back to this map right here, you guys, look at this. They're feeding 200 elk right here. They're feeding 250 deer. Bob Meyer knows they're feeding 200 elk right here. So we're not going to put a feeding ban in place in Kitson County. Bob Meyer's fully aware of it. I can tell you that they drive every other day all the way to D&D Commodities and pick up feed. I made a video and I ticked the guys off. I said, I think they're getting paid. Why? Because a guy told me they got a check for $5,000 from the state years ago to reimburse them for the money they were paying to feed the elk up here. So maybe I was wrong. Maybe they're not getting paid. The guy drives every other day 77 miles. He's probably not getting paid. And he's buying 5 tons of grain every other day on his own accord. That could be. That's probably right. But initially, there was a $5,000 check paid to feed the deer right here from the DNR. And today there's 450 deer and elk commingling right here. But if you're in Roseau County, you get a ticket. And we're closer to CWD in Climax, Fisher area. We're closer. But the DNR, wink, wink, nod, nod, they're happy to feed the elk here.
Steve, can that elk get CWD?
The elk can get CWD. They absolutely can. And there you got 450 of them yarded up there. How do I know this? Because I went up there and looked and talked. It's in my county. Okay? So do I feed deer in Kittson County? Absolutely. I sped this video up. They lose their fear of people. They come all over the place. They have no fear of people. I fed 300 wild deer this winter. 150,000 pounds of beak tailings. I tried to do everything right for 30 years. I did closed my herd, USDA testing on my deer. I did TB, I did brucellosis. I don't care anymore. I don't care about anything. All the rules I followed didn't do me a bit of good. I'm still being run out of business. I might as well feed the wild deer. So I sped 300 deer. Do you think they're afraid of people? I sped the video up just so we could get through it.
Probably not right there. They're not scared of you because you're there every day. You're their feed source, particularly.
But they're run down. They're run down long before the winter severity index would kick in, and these deer would be dying. And I go to listen to the DNR talk, and they say you can't feed the deer corn.
But Steve, if this doe right here was out in the woods and there was a hunter out there and they kicked their stand with their their gun,
she would have been gone. She would have
run
gone.
off and
But in the winter when it's 30 below, the deer are getting thin.
Right.
They're run down. Okay. They lose their fear of man. Okay.
Are you so sure?
Huh?
Are you so sure? I mean, even the Vince Schutte Bear Refuge have proved that if you inclement wild animals into the subsistence of humanity, they're no longer going to be afraid. So how are you so sure?
Okay, so her question is, how am I so sure that they're going to be wild deer if I feed them? Just a simple question. Are you in favor of a feeding ban?
What I'm asking.
I'm just asking you first.
No, what I'm asking
are you in
as
favor
a reporter,
of
how can you be assured that their sensitivity to the,
So her question is for the viewing audience that nope, she can't hear. How can I be sure that these deer are going to stay wild if I'm feeding them in my yard? Because I've been doing it for 30 years.
And because you kick your stand and they spook off.
Oh yeah.
I kick my floor and my dog spooks off, Mr. Reporter.
So what do you want me to do? Should I quit feeding because they're not wild?
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
No, I think what he's saying is
if you're getting wild animals accustomed to substitute,
these deer
I'm
only
not
come around in
against.
the winter.
I'm not against.
These deer only come in the winter, right?
The deer only come in the winter and they're gone all year long. But I'm just saying, if you don't feed them, they die.
Now, mind you, deer are a natural herd animal. So I do agree with substantial feeding of deer when it comes to it.
So you're in favor of deer feeding?
I am, absolutely.
Okay. Do you like what I'm doing?
I do, but I have a hard time agreeing with the fact that, I kick my stand, they spook away.
Steve, have you ever had hunters up there?
I never shot a deer last year too, by the way. I never shot a deer. I fed deer and I never shot one.
Is it that dramatic? You didn't have...
No, I just don't care. I don't care to hunt. I like feeding deer and I like seeing them survive, and I never shot a deer, so it's all good.
Okay.
All right?
Fair enough.
Yeah. And so, but here's a question about the feeding of deer, okay?
You said baiting.
I did say baiting. But I caught myself and then I said feeding.
That's right.
Do you want me to talk about baiting or do you want me to talk about feeding?
I would like you to talk about feeding. Me, myself, I plant food plots, sir.
Do you want to come up and finish the seminar for me?
No, I appreciate it.
No, you come stand. You can help me.
I want to see this. So
Okay. Listen. Okay? There's water, cookies, pop, take a break, get up, refresh yourself, okay? Hand the stuff out. Now you made me lose my train of thought. The feeding of the deer, here's what I was going to say before you got me discombobulated. The Minnesota DNR says if we yard up the deer and they feed like this, they're going to spread CWD. They're going to have nose-to-nose contact. You know what my argument is? If we ban feeding in the Northland, the deer still yard up regardless.
they're herd animals.
They're a herd animal.
Absolutely.
Okay, come on up here and help me. Come help me.
I don't disagree
Okay,
at all.
but you want to come help me? I can't keep talking if you interrupt me every 2 minutes.
I'm not.
Okay.
I was agreeing with you.
Okay, what I want to say is, I'm going to try it again. Okay? Let me finish this time. Thank you. If the deer yard up, I've had people in this part, this is your deer and you're hunting, or you guys love your deer here. I'm just sharing some advice that I've learned, okay? Reject it or not. If the deer are not fed and they all yard up in a tamarack swamp is what I've been told, that you guys would tell me in the big swamps, I don't know, they find a food source, you go in there, there's 100 deer. You've got 10 to 15 family units mixing together, coming from miles away. Family units that would have never had nose-to-nose contact, yarding together. If you want to spread disease, get 15 different family units all yarded up all winter long. If everybody fed deer, and you fed 10 deer in your land, your neighbor down the road fed 5, and the neighbor down here fed 10, the family units wouldn't be all yarded up. They wouldn't be commingling. We'd actually have less nose-to-nose contact if everybody fed a small amount of deer. We'd have less. The family units would be staying together, they wouldn't be competing for feed, and they wouldn't be yarding up as bad if they could stay on the same small tract of property and get 5 gallons of corn now and then, or good feed. That's my point. Thank you. Thank you. That's my theory. I didn't say I was right, it's my theory.
That's your theory.
What's your theory?
Deer are naturally a herd animal.
Okay.
Coming from a
So do you
background-
like feeding deer?
Do I like feed? Absolutely. I like
Okay.
sustaining them through the winter. Absolutely.
So, Steve, if I might add, I'll be the most unpopular person in the room here. I'm not a fan of feeding deer, but I have fed deer, and I have proposed that if you were going to feed them, I'd suggest we do it just how you said. Everybody needs to feed deer.
A few deer.
On the other hand, growing up, cutting my teeth in the early 80s, hunting with my family and following my grandfather, who always seemed to shoot a 235-pound buck every year, and sometimes bigger. What I've noticed is missing from our landscape is whether you want to call it high grading, whether you want to call it the weak are surviving. What I don't like about feeding is that the weak are surviving. But what I also don't like is that we're not managing the predation,
Correct.
which is the other factor.
Sure.
So in my perfect world, we wouldn't feed, but we'd manage predators, and the strong would survive. And then as hunters, we'd have the responsibility of appropriate harvest in our area we hunt in.
Amen.
Now, that's a perfect world.
Okay.
And,
Absolutely.
I'm just about done here. What he commented for the viewing audience is he's not so necessarily in favor of feeding, but we have to at times. We need to control predators. Correct? Okay. Dr. James Kroll, this is what he had to say about feeding deer. He says, we have been asked to comment on feeding bans for CWD. Okay, we will. This is a complicated issue that genetics tend to simplify first. First, we hear too much nowadays about science-based decisions. Nothing is settled science. We certainly support science-based management, but the science has to be there first and foremost. There is not a single peer-reviewed scientific study that has shown that a feeding ban or baiting ban has done anything to slow the spread of CWD. Nothing. Don't come back at us with so-called evidence based on Frankenstein research of forced feeding or intracranial injection of contaminated material into a pen deer. Show us the study that produced the statistical reliability on stopping the spread of CWD. Dr. James Kroll says it's nonsensical. You guys, you can do a survey in the room. I got plenty of deer on my land. I've been feeding them for 30 years. Not in my front yard, but I feed the deer, okay? Just ask yourself, do you have enough deer on your land? Because this is about you and your hunting and your opportunities for your grandkids and your friends and nephews to come and hunt. This is about your opportunity on your land, whether we should have a feeding ban or not. It's not about me. That's about you guys on your land. Okay? So, I'm gonna go back to the wolf situation. The comment that a guy asked me in back earlier. He said, Steve, and he's right. Was it you? They're federally protected. There's really not much we can do. And I disagree with that. I totally disagree. Because what is a federal protection? It's the state saying you can't do it. The feds. It's the feds, okay? So the feds say you can't have a wolf season, okay? The feds have lots of laws. The feds, I believe, check what I'm saying. The feds said you can't smoke and possess marijuana in Colorado. Federal law. Colorado said, get bent. We're going to legalize it. Colorado said, we're legalizing it. I don't believe there was a lawsuit, you guys. They just legalized it and said, feds, you come sue us. And they did it because Colorado wanted to smoke and possess pot. There's a federal aviation law that says you cannot shoot from a helicopter. Do you guys think it's okay to shoot from a helicopter? Federal law restricts it. I took my kid to Texas. He was 13 years old. The guy had a helicopter. My kid had never shot an AR. I brought him there. We brought him to Walmart, bought a small game license for about 10 bucks. Brought him back, strapped him into a helicopter, and we shot 40, 30-round clips in an hour and a half. We shot like 60 pigs and 20 coyotes. My 13-year-old boy was shooting an AR out of a helicopter. Federal law says you can't shoot out of a helicopter. Can you explain to me what's going on? What's going on, you guys? Research it. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. The state of Texas said, we got a pig problem. We're going to license this activity. We're controlling our pigs. And we're going to shoot from a helicopter. They told the federal government, get bent. We're shooting pigs out of the air. So here we are in Minnesota. We got a wolf problem. And we say, well, they're federally protected. Golly gee, there's nothing we can do. You know why we can't do anything? Because the people that have been elected to power love wolves.
Let's keep that in mind, the people that have been elected to power. Now, Steve, Mr. Porter, I apologize for interrupting you, but some of your examples, for say, what about the Federal Migratory Bird Act? Ducks.
I got a question for you real quick. Are you in favor of the amount of wolves that we have on the land right now?
Absolutely not. I live in Reamer, Minnesota. I am in the heart of the
Do you
Chippewa
want
National
less
Forest.
wolves or more?
But just listen to me for a minute. Hear me out, Mr. Porter. I'll be more than happy to entertain your questions after. What I am saying is, I don't disagree with the stance on wolves, but I'm saying, at what power does it come to where you can turn a delegated House and Senate to see that you want it your way? My question is because, I mean, even you think about ducks, which was my example. Okay, ducks are federally regulated under the Migratory Bird Act, and yet each state limit is prohibited by state. Wolves, absolutely, we'd love to control it. I live in Reamer.
Can I respond?
Not yet. I live in Reamer. All right, don't sit there. I have the largest wolf pack in the state of Minnesota, less than 6 miles from my house. So I understand, and I see the detriment, but ration out.
What's your question? What's your question?
We're
Just tell me
trying.
your
I
question.
mean, you're sitting there lashing out against the MDHA
Would you just please tell me your question?
Okay, so how do we change it? How do we
Thank
change
you for
it?
your question.
How do we
Thank
change
you.
it?
Her question for the viewing audience is, how do we change it? Okay, let me tell you what we do. Last summer, I chased around politicians in effort to save my farm from lobbyists who want to shut me down and destroy me and Democrats. I chased politicians around the state. I spent 15 nights in a hotel. I got to know 8 different senators. I got to know Jim Schultz running for Attorney General. I had a fundraiser for Scott Jensen. I got politically active and involved in trying to save my farm. It's all I did. I got to meet Jim Schultz running for Attorney General. I said, Jim, can you, as Attorney General, if you win, can you sue the federal government and give us a wolf season? Jim Schultz said, absolutely.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Do you know who? Yeah, wow.
That's impressive.
No, it's not impressive. It's normal procedure. Where have you been? It's normal procedure for an Attorney General of a state to take their state back and sue the federal governments and say we have a right to be a sovereign state. The Attorney General has the right to sue the federal government. Keith Ellison chooses not to, okay? So Jim Schultz said he could do it. I have a fundraiser with Scott Jensen. I have 30 farmers in the room. Scott comes in, we're going to have a roundtable discussion. Okay, so here we are, and I said I'm fighting for my farm, but I didn't bring 30 deer farmers in. I brought 30 farmers from every walk of life. Scott comes in, we listen for an hour. He takes notes. Farmers are being harangued by the DNR. Agriculture's under attack. Every one of them, we're talking. Okay, they're upset. I don't need to go into an hour's worth of detail, but I can. Okay, Scott gets done. Jim Schultz is sitting there running for Attorney General. I had Steve Green, I think, was there, and a couple other representatives. And we talked about all the issues. Livestock predation was one of them. Jim, can you sue? Yes. Scott, would you allow us to have a wolf season? And people say, well, we can't afford to have a wolf season, we can't afford an attorney, so there's nothing we can do. But you guys, Walsh will never want a wolf season, neither would Flanagan, and neither would Keith Ellison. They don't want it. So as long as we're under that control, we're not going to get it. But can political pressure be put on these leaders? That's my question. Can we put political leaders under pressure to have a wolf season? Did I get a valid current license issued by the Commissioner of Public Safety? Every one of you gun owners, you need to get another license to keep your gun if this law passes. Okay? What do we need to have here? Database of firearm registration and transfers. You will register your guns. Database, the Commissioner's going to create a system to keep track of it all, and you will provide the serial number and register all your firearms, or you're guilty of a crime up to a year in jail. You will have insurance on each gun that you own. You must have insurance. Liability insurance. So you need a license, you're going to need registration, and you're going to need to have an insurance policy. The first year, what I suspect is, it might be $50 per gun to have an insurance policy. That's what I suspect. There will be a shooting, and then the insurance rates are going to go up. And the next year, it might be $300, $400, $500 a gun. Is everybody in this room alarmed about this? Because the price on the insurance is going to go up annually as they have to pay out. Are we doing anything about this? Do we care about this? Do we want a license, registration, and insurance on guns? Who's bringing it forward? I didn't care 2 cents about politics, you guys, until my farm was under attack. And you know what I see? Republicans voting to save my farm, Democrats voting to destroy it. The Democrat Party of today is not your grandma and grandpa's, your mom and dad's Democrat Party. It's been hijacked by the extreme far left. You don't have to care about this, but it's coming. I think it's going to pass. Who's bringing this to you? Who's bringing it to you? The Democrats are bringing this to you. Then there are going to be people getting tickets and going to jail for not having a license, registration, or insurance on their gun. The other law is if your gun is stolen or lost, you will report it within 48 hours. If you don't report it within 48 hours, you've committed a gross misdemeanor up to a year in jail. Here we go. We talked about this just a little bit, okay? So, I got this point on the slide. What I wanted to do is ask Jared, he put out a call to action for people to call their senators on the wolf bill. Is that correct, Jared? Please come up here.
It's my turn now.
Come on up here and I want to ask what you're doing on this topic.
Right. Just that question, what am I doing?
I just want, well, I got a nice,
Oh, okay.
I got your thing on here.
Perfect.
So can you explain? I appreciate what you did here, right? Is this what you typed up?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's correct.
So why are you concerned about this, and what would you like the viewing audience to do about this wolf bill?
Call your senators. The wolf bill, it passed the House, prohibiting a wolf season. It was on the Senate floor today. The amendment did not get proposed on the floor, which was a huge win. I've spent the last couple days, ever since this first happened, been on the phone constantly. Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited, National Deer Association, Rough Grouse Society, every conservation group in the state put together a joint letter opposing this amendment, and it didn't receive a hearing. So I'm going to chalk that up as a win for now.
Do you think it's coming off?
I'm also encouraging every single one of our members to contact their senator. You, as a citizen of the state of Minnesota, you have a voice. I'm asking you to use it. So I see nothing wrong with that.
Sure. And so I'm asking what you found out is, I don't know. Do you think that bill is dead now?
It's not dead. There's still a chance it could go into conference committee, but we'll be ready for that as well.
Okay.
Myself and our lobbyist, like it says here, Eric, who's at the Capitol every day, we're watching this very closely. We're doing everything we can.
So the questions on the bills, the people at the state are sneaky, they'll slide stuff in. Jared addresses this. And you can see up here, Jared, you said something about, did they sneak it in on the 17th?
Yep.
Without consideration of any legislative committee hearings, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, the Minnesota Deer Farm Association, we have a lobbyist. We spend about $25,000 a year for our lobbyist. I understand you said his name is Eric. You have a lobbyist.
Correct.
Do you know what you spend for Eric to lobby and be at the Capitol? Is it close to 25 grand?
It's probably more, but I have to look back.
So we hired a lobbyist to protect us. You guys have a lobbyist to protect you. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Not to protect us,
But
to
protect-
advocate on behalf of our members.
Protect your interests.
Correct.
Correct? So here, I'm just asking about if your lobbyist dropped the ball or not, because it says here that it looks like on April 13th, 2023, it says that this bill, for down here, open season for taking wolves, the prohibition, our lobbyist has dropped the ball. I'm asking if yours did. Because it says if you would like to sign up to testify, submit written testimony, or provide handouts, and you'd like to testify on a bill for open season of taking wolves, and this came out on April 13th, is it possible that your lobbyist dropped the ball and never told you about this bill coming forward?
Absolutely not, but that was an information session only. There was no action being taken, but we were aware of it.
Okay, all right. And then this bill here is a bill that was introduced by Republican John Burkle, and this bill, HF 2139, it says that it was put online on 2/21 of 23, and it says this bill here is the mirror image to the wolf ban, and it says the commissioner must prescribe an annual open for wolves once they're delisted. So this bill came online back in February, and I'm just wondering, should we get involved in a Republican bill, and if we could have got that to pass, would this bill have guaranteed us it would be a trigger law that says once they're delisted, we would have a wolf season? So did MDHA want to come on board with this, or did your lobbyist, did he tell you about this bill?
Absolutely. I've got a sheet right here with all the bills we've been monitoring, and that one's top of the list.
Did you?
And it never received a hearing, so we had no opportunity.
Did you sign on or talk to John Burkle at all about that one?
We did.
You talked to John?
I didn't. Eric did.
Eric did? Okay. I talked to John today, and he said that he hadn't heard anything from MDHA or other lobbyists, but maybe he forgot. So I got a question here. The emergency call to action, I think it's fantastic. I want to thank you for doing the emergency call to action, okay? And this is about uniting sportsmen's clubs and farmers, you said. But does that call to action, does that unite deer hunters with deer farmers? In a call to action to have a wolf season?
On our joint letter, we have the Elk Breeders Association as a co-signer.
You did?
We did.
And would you want the deer farmers on that letter as well?
If you are opposed to that amendment, then absolutely. The more organizations we can get against that bill, the better.
I think that'd be fantastic.
I mean, despite the point you're trying to make and that you've been trying to make in your Facebook videos, we are not in bed with the Democrats. We're not in bed with the DNR. We go out there and we advocate for our members' interests. And our members, it's a diverse group of people, right? So we're not 100% Democrats, we're not 100% Republicans. We go issue by issue. So the one Democratic policy you have talked about today that we are supporting is CWD management, more regulations of certain farms. We align on wolf management, firearms. We're pro Second Amendment rights. We don't want to see any infringements on Second Amendment rights.
Right.
We want to see deer feeding. Like you said, we started that back in the day. We want that to come back. I serve on the Deer Advisory Council with the DNR and a number of stakeholders around the state. Just had a meeting 2 days ago, and I was advocating for deer feeding. We were talking about the feeding ban, the attractant ban. They're developing this new formula for how they identify those different prohibition zones for both feeding and attractants. I'm weighing in on all of that. I don't see the deer farmers there. MDHA is at these tables, and that's what I mean. I say we have a seat at the table.
But
Not with Rick Hansen. It's with the people making the decisions, the people with the power. Our voice is heard in those rooms. I don't see the deer farmers there.
right, and we've emailed. Have you gotten any emails from Scott Fierce saying we'd like to have a meeting?
Not one.
Not one.
I
Did
believe-
you get any phone calls or emails
I
from
had
Scott?
one voicemail on January 3rd.
And what did he want?
I started January 1st, and I was out of town, and I never got back to him.
And so we've been trying to have meetings, and we would love to have a meeting with the Deer Farmers Board and MDHA Board.
I have a
And
meeting on...
instead of just run to the Capitol, pass a law that says Steve's out of business.
Well, I wish I could pass laws.
But,
I can't.
but your lobbyist
I
is,
advocate for it.
but your lobbyist was working towards running me out of business. You're paying a lobbyist to run me out of business.
No, I'm paying a lobbyist to represent my members' interests.
Okay. So
I have a question. Have you ever been to a deer farm? You know what they're actually like?
I have been to a deer farm, yes.
Which one?
Could I?
I couldn't tell you. I think I was 12 years old.
Okay.
So not
Have you been to
recently.
one since you've grown up a little?
What's that?
Have you been to one since you've grown up a
no,
little bit?
let's just be. Let me just
You
finish a
probably
couple.
should.
Hold on. Thank you guys. We're gonna have more questions. Let me just finish this. Thank you. Thank you for coming up here. Okay. We'll disagree. We'll just agree to disagree. I feel that you're passing legislation that you're pushing the charge to run me out of business. I feel that way. You say you're representing the interest of your constituents. But if I ask this question, and I appreciate you coming up here, thank you.
Yeah.
You got more courage than I thought, so I congratulate you on that, okay? So, if we're gonna say we live in a democrat society and we get to vote on whether someone stays in business or not, the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association voted, and they said they want double fencing, is that correct?
Correct. Amongst other things.
And amongst other things, but it'll end my business, okay? I can't afford $250,000 to put up another fence, so I'm done. In a democrat society, people get to vote. And do we live in a democrat society? Do you embrace a democrat society? Is that the right way it should be?
A democratic society,
Yeah.
a democracy?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I believe we live in a constitutional republic. And what you're embracing is that if a few people vote that you have to license, register, and insure your guns, and they have them, they can sway people, then your constitutional rights don't matter. They voted, you don't get guns. And if a few people can sway the people in the Capitol that you got to live with wolves, then take this democracy and say I don't have any constitutional rights and I have to learn to live with wolves. So when you embrace that lifestyle and that model, we voted, that's the way it's going to be. A constitutional republic, you have rights in the Constitution to keep and bear arms. The Minnesota Constitution says you have a right to hunt, and they're going to vote and say you got to live with wolves. Suck it up. You don't have any constitutional rights. My last questions here is, what groups have you reached out to form? You said Rough Grouse Society. Can you name some more?
Rough Grouse Society, National Deer Association, Pheasants Forever, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, thank you, Trappers Association, Elk Breeders Association, Cattlemen's Association.
And you're willing.
We have 11, 12, 13-ish signers on this letter.
And you'd be willing to partner with the deer farmers?
If you want to sign on to the letter, absolutely.
Okay, and are there any clubs that you wouldn't want to sign up with?
You're on a list.
On this bill?
Yeah.
In particular?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
You
You'd
got the
take anybody.
Sportsman's Alliance, the Minnesota Forest Zone, Trappers Association, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Sahara Club, International, Minnesota State Cattlemen's Association, Rough Grouse Society, and Minnesota Elk Breeders Association.
But Steve, I know where this is going.
Sure.
Assuming it's the Babbitt Conservation Association.
There it is.
And this was not the letter we drafted, and this is not the views of MDHA.
Well, let's just go through it. I just want to ask a
This
question.
is advocating for a full dismantling of the DNR.
No, well, let's
We
just.
are asking for a wolf season.
Okay,
There's a big
can we just read this here?
Sure.
So can you tell me when the Babbitt Conservation Club got a hold of you and they said that they want to have a letter to fight the ban on wolf hunting? Can you tell me how long ago that was?
I could not tell you, a couple weeks, few weeks, but the Babbitt Conservation Club never did get a hold of me. I received a copy of the letter.
Okay, so
Said this chapter.
So let's just dissect this real quick. So the Babbitt Conservation Club reached out to you 2 weeks ago, and the Babbitt Conservation Club said we're worried about a wolf ban prohibiting a hunting season. And we would like MDHA to come on board with us, and let's see what it says. It says, the Minnesota DNR has done an excellent job of managing stuff in the past. I could hand it out to you guys and let you read it for yourself. It's hard to read, it's a little out of focus. But it says, we want to manage wolves. We got too many wolves, we need to do something. The big game hunting in Minnesota has gone downhill. Our deer numbers have dropped from a huntable 10 animals per square mile to only 1 animal per square mile. We most agree that the overpopulation of gray wolves is by far the determining factor in dangerously low numbers of moose and deer. They're basically upset, and 2 weeks ago the Babbitt Sportsman's Club reached out to the Sturgeon River chapter. The Sturgeon River chapter sent this letter, and Jared got a copy of it 2 weeks ago. Is that accurate?
I would say roughly 2 weeks, I couldn't tell you.
Okay, but if I go back, you said you're kind of surprised by this bill coming forward, is that correct?
We were surprised by how it was presented.
On the 17th.
How it came forward.
So did you respond to the Babbitt Sportsman's Club?
I responded to the chapter that was in touch with the Babbitt Sportsman Club.
Okay, let's look at that letter. It says, Dear Babbitt Conservation Club, thank you for attending
No,
our
this
work.
was not sent to them.
What's that?
This was not sent to them,
To who?
to the Babbitt.
Who was it to?
It is addressed to them, it was not sent to them. This was sent to the officers to review, to send back to me. This was not sent to Babbitt. That is dirty cool, Steve. Dirty cool.
Well, let me just read the letter, okay?
Why? Doesn't make any sense.
Wow.
Can I just read the letter?
More lies,
Proof the letter's irrelevant.
more lies, Steve.
More lies.
What's everybody saying? It didn't go to the Sportsman's Club.
But it was written to the Babbitt Sportsman's Club.
Why
Who
didn't
wrote the letter? Who wrote the letter?
I did.
You wrote this letter?
To the Sturgeon River chapter. Why would I write to the Babbitt Conservation Club about the Sturgeon River's grant that is in process?
So what it says is, regrettably, we can't sign on to your letter, and this letter is from Jared Mrazek. On another note, I received a copy of the letter from Babbitt Conservation Club. The Sturgeon River in no way should sign on to this letter. Many of our chapters collaborate on CPL grants and with the DNR. It is my understanding that the Sturgeon River is one of these grants in progress. We cannot burn bridges. We have conducted conservation, I'm just highlighting here. We've done a lot of good in the state. We've done a lot of good work with the DNR. And we really don't want to burn any bridges over this wolf issue. I think that's a fair representation of what it says. My point is, Babbitt did reach out to the Sturgeon River chapter 2 weeks ago. Let's get active, let's go after this wolf thing. And nothing happened for 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden on the 17th, there's an emergency call to action that we have to get action and start going after our senators. We had John Burkle put up a bill. John Burkle put up a bill that says, hey, we want to have a wolf season as soon as they're delisted. And nobody came alongside of John Burkle and said, let's pursue this and get a wolf season as soon as they're delisted. I think we should have came alongside of John Burkle, and we should have got that some traction. We should have been calling our senators long before and saying, come on board with John Burkle and let's have a trigger law in place where they're federally protected. And the only reason I'm saying this, hey, is you guys have a lobbyist. You spend good money. And I'm just asking that you would take your lobbyist and stop focusing on deer farms and running me out of business. And the matters at hand are not whether Steve can go to a sports show. But I can congratulate you and shake your hand because my farm will be dead. It will die this legislative session when these laws pass. My 31-year-old farm's dead. You have a lobbyist. You earn money. My farm's being stolen from me. I'm not going to get a penny. 31 years of work. And you guys could be focusing on wolves, baiting, other things. But it's not Steve Porter spreading CWD from a USDA certified herd going to a sports show. That's not the issue. And I think you could better put your resources in a better direction. That's my point.
Don't you have a lobbyist also?
Yeah, so, I mean,
Yeah,
speaking of,
Yeah, we do have a lobbyist, and we went from 700 deer farmers down to about 150. We don't have 2 nickels to rub together. We can't afford to do anything. And so yeah, we got a lobbyist, but we're pretty much broke, and we're being pushed out the door. Can't afford to I can't do any maintenance on my farm. Can't improve anything because my income's being stolen from me, and I'm prevented from conducting business. So whether I have a lobbyist or not really doesn't matter. We're fighting, we've been fighting for 5 years, but who are we fighting? We're fighting your lobbyist at the DNR and Rick Hansen.
I don't see it that way.
You're fighting the DNR, Steve.
Yes.
And you
Steve,
think that we
But
are
you're-
the DNR, we are not the DNR.
But your lobbyist is at the hearings telling them to pass
I
these
heard
laws.
him at the hearing, I listened to it.
Did your lobbyist tell him to pass the things that Jared wanted passed?
It's not, it's,
He was
again,
totally against the wolf hunt. He said, or against passing this bill. He said,
Is your lobbyist trying to pass the laws against deer farms, yes or no?
the CWD legislation.
Our lobbyist is speaking the way that the organization has voted and told him how to represent us.
So yes.
That's what our lobbyist is.
So, yeah,
So, yes.
voting at Deer Farm.
So yes,
You know what?
our
Here's something.
again,
I
our
have-
lobbyist
I have
is
a
there
electrical
advocating on
business.
behalf of our members.
And there's a lot of cost in the electrical business. Should I say, go after people because it costs too much to run my electrical business too? And I'm not bashing you or whatever, but there are other things. And everybody isn't out to get you.
You guys are lobbying to run me out of business. Question in the back.
Couple of questions for you, Steve. You can afford to feed 300 wild deer, and you can't afford to maintain your own operation, and please tell us about your operation and
Thank
how
you.
those deer make money for you. and
Thank you for the
What
question.
actually happens to those deer inside the pen on your property?
That's John Hart's.
Thank you, John Hart.
That's Steve Porter.
John, but I'm gonna have a question. Would you come up here, John? I got some questions for you.
Let's
John, come on up. Come on, John. USDA Wolf Trapper. Round of applause. Come on up here, John. Come on. Come on, John.
Answer his question.
He won't come up here? John Hart.
Answer the question first.
Well, this has been the longest 35 minutes I've ever
Before you come back there,
experienced.
I've been looking around the audience and I'm assuming that there are some farmers here. I grew up on a dairy farm. And all I know is that we never charged anybody, I mean, to shoot any of our animals there. So I think it's a misnomer to talk about a deer farm.
Okay, so let me answer your question. What he's saying to the viewing audience, he says he was a cattle farmer, dairy farmer, he raised animals on a farm. He says it's a misnomer that in fact people could pay to shoot animals. Minnesota statute 17.452 says in fact that deer are an agricultural pursuit, that their byproducts are agriculture. So you can disagree with the law, but they are agriculture. And if I decide to have an animal on my farm hunted, what you're telling me is it's not about CWD, you're upset that I'm harvesting animals. That's what really gets to you, the core, is that I'm harvesting animals on my farm, and it's not about CWD. MDHA had a stand against deer farms in the early 90s. It was in their book, we stand opposed to deer farms, and then when CWD came along, they're like, yes, now we got a cause to run them out of business. But you guys were against us before we ever had CWD because you don't like what we're doing. We're a legitimate business. Carleton County has a tax forfeited land division. People are walking away from their land because there's no deer. There's nothing to do on the land. They have a separate division for tax forfeited land. I do make money on my land. I do pay taxes. The world goes around. I buy tires, battery, gas, fertilizer, and seed, and you don't like that I harvest animals. But I'm a legitimate business. But if you have your way,
I'm just saying it's a misnomer to call it a deer farm.
it's not because it's statute. What should I call it? What would you rather I call it than a deer farm?
Deer farm.
Well,
A deer slaughter?
at the start
Now
of
your
the
true color,
presentation,
now your true colors are coming out.
at the start of the presentation, I'm pretty sure you referred to it as your entertainment business that is running out of business, and I think that might be a better term.
Yeah, so my entertainment
I
business,
think-
my entertainment business, what? It was 20 years of me going to sports shows. And it was entertainment because I went to sports shows all across the country.
It's not, John's ready to
separate.
answer.
Come on, John.
See if he answers.
John, come on
Hold on,
up.
quick,
Come
I
on,
got a
John.
question for Jared.
Okay.
So the double fencing, I'm just wondering, like, what science backs that up, that MDHA, or the Hunter Association is behind? What science backs that up? Is there stuff that says if there's two fences, then the CWD won't spread from in the fence to out the fence, and out the fence to in the fence?
I mean, Steve was talking about it earlier, it's the nose-to-nose contact that they're worried about, it's the coming in contact with urine, with feces. So that's the theory behind the double fencing.
But the thing about the double fencing is I have a USDA clean herd. If I had CWD, okay, go ahead, finish, but I have a clean herd. I have a clean herd.
We heard that.
Yeah.
And that's great, Steve.
Fence in my clean herd again.
But what we want to prevent is that herd becoming unclean spread from there.
Okay, can I respond to that?
Sure.
So he says that he wants to prevent my farm from coming dirty and spreading off the farm. That's logical. I have a closed herd. I don't import animals onto my farm. I have a clean herd. If I ever had CWD, I'd be done today, instantly. I don't import deer. So what you're saying is, we don't recognize USDA science. We're not going to recognize that you have a clean herd, double fence them, and get run out of business. But with that philosophy, you guys are in trouble. Your gun rights and your wolves and everything you're fighting for, that same mentality is going to be used against you. It's going to be used against you in the near future.
Jared, I have a second question.
Yeah.
We talked at the beginning
If
about.
I had 84 deer in a pen and you're selling them for 40,000 a piece, which I heard you say.
God, I wish we get that kind of money.
Let me repeat that. Let me repeat that for the viewing audience. What he's saying is that I sell deer for $40,000 a
You
piece.
said that at another meeting.
Never said it. Never said it.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Anyway,
I have a really
if
good
I had
question.
84 deer in a pen and they're worth 40,000 a piece, I'd have that triple fence. To hell with CWD. I'd have the triple fence so they didn't get out.
Wouldn't that be nice if we could legislate how other people spend their money? I think that'd be awesome. Well, I wish I could legislate how you spend your money.
If one raven or one eagle picks up a piece of CWD, whatever out here, and drops it in your fence,
I'm
double
not
fence
talking about
don't mean
CWD
nothing.
now. I'm talking about the value of his deer.
Why does what Steve's money have to do with any of the conversation? He says he can't afford to double fence, and you guys take that as, well, Steve, you make a lot of money. He also puts out a lot of money to make that money.
Yeah.
That's the thing
It's
to run a
a
business
farming
for.
enterprise.
So Jared, I got a question.
Right. Sorry, before I get to I don't want to worry about how you spend your money or anything like that, but why aren't you using your resources in your lobbyist to add an amendment to this CWD legislation that they use their however many millions of dollars budget to help support deer farmers to accommodate these new measures? Why aren't you advocating for that rather than spending all your time on Facebook attacking me and MDHA? I think there's a lot better way to use your time.
Yeah. And you attacked me first by sending a lobbyist to the Capitol around me out of business.
Jared,
2 years ago.
I really good question.
All right, we have a question here. Sorry, he's been
So-
waiting to ask for a while.
If you could give me the documentations for the science that shows that the double fence is going
Yeah.
to in fact make a difference, I would like if we get that. We gotta get Elise, if that's right? We gotta get Alice, oh sorry. We gotta get her some evidence about that dumpster video. I took notes here for Steve Porter. My second question is, Steve talked about genetic testing. It's something new. I don't know if MDHA has heard about it. I have. I know Steve Porter does genetic testing. He's getting results. There's other deer farmers in Wisconsin, in Minnesota that are behind this. What I'm wondering is, when we're trapping deer, killing deer in Grand Rapids, to slow the spread of CWD is what I'm told. By killing deer, if there's less deer, less nose-to-nose contact. But there's science that it spreads in other forms. So let's say it's even 50-50. Well, are you really stopping the spread by killing those deer? Well, what do we get out of that? We get a percent of a number, right? So you guys can say, we killed 129 deer in the last year. I'm not saying MDHA, I'm saying us as a public. The DNR, we represent the DNR too, right? So us as a public, we got 130 or 129 deer killed in Grand Rapids. And what do we know from that information? Well, we know that, I think they said 2 were positive. So that's less than a percent if my math is quick in my head. But what I'm wondering is, Steve's spending his money that everyone wants him to spend in whatever ways they want, and you said he can spend it how he wants, but he's spending his own money to do genetic testing on his farm. He doesn't have to. He's doing genetic testing, he's doing it for himself, and he's doing it for the people that are going to be hunting deer in the future, because his information and all the other farmers are going to spread to the public to help get that information into the wild deer. But we had 129 deer killed in Grand Rapids, right? I believe they did shooting last year and they did shooting this year. Point of my story is, have we genetic tested any of those deer? And why not? Or why did we if we did?
Yeah, it's a great question.
So is that something that MDHA is going to get behind, is genetic testing? Can we sit down and look at the deer farmers and that research and the credibility that's behind that? The work that Steve has been doing is substantial into CWD genetic testing. So could MDHA say, hey, we care about our deer population, we care about that we can't feed them, we care that wolves are eating them, But we also care that if we can get genetic testing and help from the Deer Farmers Association, if you guys sat down with the Deer Farmers Association, yeah, you guys are gonna squabble, but you're gonna gain so much information and potential information that's gonna help you guys, the DNR, and all of us in this room as the public, as the hunter. So is MDHA gonna do that now that we know that there's farmers that are doing it? And you can genetic test, correct me if I'm wrong, live or dead, right? So there's 129 deer that we shot, killed, trapped, whatever we did, and we didn't get any science off of it. We got 1%. So that did nothing for the public of hunting. It diminished the population. But there's other reasons we're killing them off too. They're eating people's flowers. Right? So that's what I'm asking is, would you be willing to sit down with the Deer Farmers Association and go over this genetic testing? Not how Steve spends his money, or if he doesn't like MDHA's views on X, Y, and Z. What I'm saying is, let's sit down and talk about CWD with the deer farmers. I think that's a good idea. Would anyone else agree?
We wanted to have a meeting with MDHA for 5 years.
And I've been here
So-
2.5 months.
So Jared, you haven't been here long. Steve's been trying to get a meeting. They asked you for a meeting. What I'm asking today,
I'm going to the Capitol Monday morning.
No,
I'm meeting with
that's-
Scott Fear. I'm meeting with
okay,
another representative.
Thank you.
that's great.
That's our mob, yes.
So then the next thing, can we sit down and meet with the deer farmers?
Your board and our board.
Because I think you might have a good head on your shoulders, right? It's pretty good you showed up. That's impressive. There's a lot of people in this room that are impressed. But for you to do that, it might show that you actually care. And now, Steve's showing to you guys how much he cares. He come here, 4-hour drive, to present and give all this information. Right? So if he's willing to sit down with you guys and your chapter or your board,
We want to see more preventative CWD measures taken, correct? This is the CWD Action Coalition. This is made up of every major conservation organization in the state of Minnesota. This is what Steve's referring to when he's saying we want to see CWD management, certifarm regulations. It's every conservation organization in the state of Minnesota. So why are you targeting us? And how can every organization and their members that care about wild deer, about habitat conservation, how can every one of those organizations be right and be wrong and only the deer farmers be right? That doesn't make sense to me. If anyone wants a copy of this Action Coalition letter, I'd be happy to provide it. I only have one copy with me, but I'll find Steve's email or something and he can distribute. Another thing I want to mention, so Steve passed around that research article. I'm impressed. I've watched a lot of Steve's videos. It's the first time I've seen a source cited, so kudos, that's great. That letter, if you look at the citations on the back, first of all, it was conducted in Texas, which nothing wrong with that. But those citations on the back, every one of those studies that isn't just about general deer biology or CWD as a disease, is about scrapie or captive or cattle. There are not wild sheep and wild cows running around the landscape. So management techniques are very, very different when you're dealing with wild deer. And again, Minnesota Deer Hunters Association, we care about the wild deer. That's who we're gonna fight for. So to your point about working with the deer farmers about this genetic solution, we're focused on wild deer. If that genetic solution were to benefit wild deer at all,
do you think it would?
so this research paper that I have, not the one from Texas about scrapie and cattle, this comes from the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy and the Minnesota Center for Prion Research and Outreach. All conducted in Minnesota, 35 citations in here, all about genetic testing and sequencing and selectively breeding white-tailed deer for CWD resistance. They have sequenced every genetic makeup possible. Not a single one is 100% resistant to CWD. In fact, what they found is a lot of these genetic makeups will prolong symptoms from developing, allowing that deer to spread prions into the environment for a longer time, effectively making it more contagious. Another factor that they bring up in this is when you start messing with white-tailed deer genetics and how CWD affects them, you run the risk of allowing CWD to mutate, potentially even, God forbid, jumping into humans if that CWD
Here,
indicates enough.
I gotta stop,
Hold
I
on.
gotta interrupt it.
I
There's
know.
not one anti-science. Fear mongering.
30 sources, scientific peer-reviewed research proving this.
That it could jump to humans? What was your question?
That it could potentially.
Potentially jump to humans?
Yes.
It could potentially jump to
Yes,
humans?
absolutely. I'm not saying it will, it's a consideration we have to take in. The other factor that they bring up on this CWD resistant selected breeding, if it's truly beneficial to the deer, why aren't wild white-tailed deer, why isn't these HH and SS more prevalent in white-tailed deer? Because it may reduce their overall fitness. Yes, they may be more resistant to CWD, but they may be more susceptible to a lot of other environmental and disease factors. So there's a lot of research, this specifically about white-tailed deer, not captive sheep, not captive cattle. So I'd be happy to distribute this as well. Last thing, so why are we and every, again, conservation organization in the state, why are we, to use your words, attacking deer farms? I mean, DNR has a CWD timeline in the state of Minnesota. It's shocking how many cases in wild deer come from CWD positive farms.
There's not one example.
I'm looking at 1,000 of them.
Does the DNR? Let me ask one question on that, put on something in perspective. How many deer are we required to test? Do you know that?
The dead ones.
Every single animal that's 12 months of age or older that dies.
Yep.
So theoretically, our entire herds will get tested.
Yep.
What's the wild testing rate? And the non-endemic areas, or you're not around a CWD positive farm.
I don't have a percentage.
Under
for
a
it.
percent.
Yeah, it's.
So where are you gonna find it first? Where you're testing everything, or where you're testing next to nothing?
I'm not gonna disagree with you that.
So you're gonna find it, you're
more.
gonna find, you're over 90% chance of finding the farm first.
But.
So, let me finish it. So if you're 90+% chance of finding the farm first, you're not testing around the farm, how do you know where it started? How do you know it didn't come from the wild into the farm?
So you're saying wild deer spreading CWD to your farm? Why wouldn't you want double fencing?
Okay, you're changing something.
Protect your farm.
You're changing, again.
Maybe if you wanna pay for it.
You guys want Steve to stay on the subject.
You gotta put a roof over it?
Why, how do you say, oh, we found it here first, that's where it started? We don't know that.
Well, what we know is we have the data that proves a lot of cases
It doesn't prove any.
are coming from around.
Have you looked at the epidemiology reports?
So like you said,
Majority of them are dead ends.
like you said, less than 1% of wild deer are tested.
Yep.
Why the prevalence of wild deer adjacent to CWD positive deer farms? When wild deer are harvested across the state.
When a farm comes up positive, what's the DNR's response? We're gonna test around the positive farm.
You're right.
Well, of course, now they're gonna find it.
in Grand Rapids?
What's that?
Where did the CWD come from in Grand Rapids?
I'm not sure, but the map Steve showed with that wolf, I'm not saying it didn't come from the wolf, but it's also right where a deer farmer in Beltrami County dumped CWD positive deer on the side of the road.
I think it,
So it could have come from that. So there's a lot of facts we can leave out when it fits our agenda, so I just want to point
I
out.
got one idea. We went to one of your meetings once in Grand Rapids here, and afterwards, this guy was telling us that he doesn't like to hunt fenced deer. I said, well, where do you hunt? He said, well, I go to Colorado and shoot elk out there or whatever. Bring it back. I said, well, what do you do with the bones and whatever when you're getting clean? I just throw them out for my dog. So if that CWD was in that elk, he brings it home, throws bones outside. That's probably where it come from in Grand Rapids.
I wouldn't say that deer farms are the only source of CWD.
Thank you.
I would never say that. What I would say is they pose a risk to the wild deer herd, and we are here to protect the wild.
what percent of a risk?
Enough to want double fencing.
Okay, so can I respond to you real quick?
Sure.
Thank you for talking so calmly. What I heard him say was, it could maybe possibly someday, we don't know, we got research that says it might go to humans. That's conjecture, that's not science.
Jumped over a whole bunch of stuff that he said.
Did you? No. Well,
So again, you're lying again, or?
wait, how am I lying? Did you say it could jump to humans possibly? What was your
After
wording?
what?
There are.
Let me hear him say it again, let me hear him say it again.
Potentially.
There is research out there that suggests that CWD could mutate to become contagious for humans.
It could mutate. Is that science?
Yes.
Science says it could mutate?
Science is that you could have a heart attack. That's science explaining
So hold on. Science, you guys, is repeatable and it's demonstratable. And if you can't repeat the experiment and it's not demonstratable, it's not science.
How many diseases have mutated over time to become able to be hosted by a human?
Here's
This is just
the
another
deal.
disease that could happen.
We'll agree to disagree, but what I'm saying is you guys love your deer herd. And as we find more and more CWD, there's gonna be more and more killing. And if you guys can sit in this room and say, I'm happy I have enough deer where I hunt, God bless you. And we said that the Minnesota Deer Hunter Association does not control the DNR. I heard that from the back. I'll agree with that. But I will ask you this. Who has the loudest voice in the state with the DNR? It's the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association. So if you're, who has the loudest voice for the deer herd? Okay. Yes, fine point. The governor has the loudest voice. My question is from a citizen group to the state, who has the loudest voice? From a citizen group, grassroots organization?
Hunters and conservationists as a whole.
But it is the Minnesota Deer Hunter Association has the loudest voice. That's my opinion.
How many deer hunters? How many members are?
So what my point is, you guys keep doing what you're doing. If you're happy with the wolves, and you're happy with the lack of deer, let's just stay on this path. My farm's gonna die. My farm's gonna be taken from me.
Steve, are we here before the wild deer, or are we here for your farm?
Both.
Both. I'm fighting for my farm, and I'm trying to make headway into the wild deer. I care about the wild deer. So John Hart, I've known you for 30 years. Please come up. I have a couple questions. And I think John's an honest man.
Sure. Let's just clear the air here a little bit. I'm here because I live in this township.
Yep.
And I'm just here on my own accord. I've known Steve professionally for a long time.
Let's listen to John Hart.
So, I would agree with the gentleman back here that said you are absolutely masterful at cherry picking your thing out of anyone else's information, filming it on your camera, putting it on your website. Anyone who spoke here tonight is very likely to show up on Steve Porter's news network. Yep. And it won't be everything you said, it'll just be the one little couple words that he can pick apart.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's going on. I think almost everyone here has seen that tonight. So I just wanted to point that out, and I'm happy to answer whatever I can for you, Steve.
I appreciate you. So back in the day, I'm gonna ask, regardless of what you think of me and how I'm trying to fight for my farm, you might not like the way I fight for my farm, but I have fought for my farm, and my kids are gonna know that I fought for my farm. And I fought, and I'm trying to keep my farm alive. And that's why I'm here tonight, and I care about the wild deer. You're a wealth of knowledge, John. You're very knowledgeable. Back in the day, we had game wardens that were doing wolf investigations showing up bias. I reached out to the Sheriff's Association, and I was able to get a law changed that said the sheriff could do a wolf investigation, as well as the DNR, when a cattle producer lost a calf. We got the law passed, it's on the books today. Sheriffs and deputies can do wolf investigations when they kill a beef cow. Game wardens were showing up bias, and they would say, well, we don't know if a kid shot the cow, and if it died from a bullet, and then a wolf came and ate it, so we're not paying you. We're not doing an investigation, and we're not calling the federal trappers. We got the law changed, we showed up, we're able to do wolf investigations, and we reached out to John Hart. And John came down to, I think it was you, John, and you did a good job teaching our deputies how to investigate wolf kills. Is that all accurate so far?
Yep, so far, except for maybe Steve's bias about his bias for the DNR conservation officers, statewide DNR conservation officers, and USDA, Wildlife Services people are the primary investigators of wolf damage.
I'm only repeating what the farmers told us.
Yep. So, in Kitson County, the only county in the Minnesota Wolf Range where I think because of some of Steve's background with the DNR, he didn't get along, and he got a law passed to allow Kitson County Sheriff's deputies to investigate wolf damage claims. Absolutely true. I helped train his personnel. Absolutely true. His personnel did a very good job. I would say very professional. Absolutely true. I would like to point out that there was probably a significant spike in verification of wolf damage the year that Steve Porter was running for sheriff in Kitson County.
Can you back that up?
I could probably go back and back it up.
Can you
but
back it up?
I think I probably could, Steve.
Not true, but please email it to me. Email it to me.
Steve, you know it.
No,
You didn't
email
go
the
on any
data. I'll put it online.
investigations until it was election year.
No.
And that was your platform for running for sheriff,
No.
and you got beat. And now you're pissed, and
Listen.
you're here in
Listen.
Itasca County spewing your bullshit again.
Why are you swearing? Why are you swearing?
Because it's the truth.
John, let me ask you a
Yeah.
question.
You bet.
Okay. All I want from you is thank you for your opinion. I appreciate
Yep.
it. Okay. Can you tell me how many wolves are trapped in Minnesota annually?
How many wolves in Minnesota are trapped annually by wildlife services
Please.
personnel?
Yeah.
Averaging about 175 a year.
For how many years?
That's probably a 10-year average.
Okay, so 175 wolves are trapped. Is there a specific time of year where there's more wolves trapped?
You bet. It's during the summer grazing season when cattle are on pasture and they're more vulnerable to wolf predation. We're only allowed to trap in response to verified damage. That happens basically this year. There's no grass right now because it's such a doggone long winter. Early May through October is depredation season for us. That's when wolves are killing cattle. It happens year round, but it happens mostly during that time. That's when most of those wolves are taken.
Okay.
April through October.
How many wolves do you think were trapped in Kitson County in a 10-year period?
Depends what 10 years.
Well, the last 10 maybe. I don't know.
The last
Pick
10.
10.
I could find out tomorrow in about 5 minutes for you, but the last 10 years, so that's 2013 to 2023. In the last 10 years, 60, 70 maybe?
Okay.
I don't know.
Is there
an
a farm?
approximation.
Is there a big cattle farm east of Lake Bronson? Big rancher out there that had 60 wolves trapped on his land in a 5-year period?
I do not believe that's true.
Okay. I think that was the total, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so these wolves that are trapped by the USDA, when you catch them in the spring, summer months and their coats are no good, what happens to those wolves?
They get shot,
And
they're killed, they're not relocated. Sometimes, oftentimes, samples are requested from various research groups, skulls, tissue, DNA, got a request for some dental work, there's a joint in the back of your jaw.
Sure.
Apparently it's just like we have in us.
So
there's a lot of those are utilized. I think where you're going with this, Steve, is these wolves are being killed and wasted, and deer hunters could be killing them and selling their fur.
Is
and
that
I
true?
get all that,
Is
I don't argue with that.
Is that true?
What?
Are the wolves wasted and do they just get thrown out to rot?
Well, if it's your livestock being killed and the wolf gets killed in your pasture, I would say the producer's probably not thinking that wolf's wasted. He's probably thinking his calves are saved.
Amen.
That's
Right.
probably the message there.
Right, and I agree, and I think you guys have done a good job trapping. I have no criticism of you and your trapping and what you're doing, but my question is for the sportsmen in the room, if we're killing 175 wolves a year annually in Minnesota, and they're not being utilized, but we did take care of a nuisance wolf, we did take care of a problem, my question is, why couldn't we have a wolf season and sell everybody a tag and just say, hey.
Is there anyone in this room that's against
Yeah, there's no one in this room who disagrees with that.
Yeah, so here's my point. Jared, would you commit to me to go online and interview this guy, and would you commit to me to say, you know what, it's such a waste, they're beautiful wolves, these wolves should be hunted and put in a taxidermy mount, and we'd love to see 175 wolves annually in Minnesota harvested, not one more than what the USDA is trapping. But I would like for my constituents to be shooting these wolves with their grandsons and partaking in the hunt. We have a constitutional right in Minnesota to hunt and trap, and that's under attack. And all I'm saying is, Jared, at MDHA, you gotta be louder and screaming for these things, but not for me. Everybody out here, have they got enough gear? I don't know, but it's, I don't think they do. I think there's a shortage of gear in the state.
Steve, it sounds like you should become an MDHA member.
Well, I can't when you guys are trying to run me out of business. It wouldn't be right.
How many MDHA members is there?
Throughout the year, around 20,000.
Wait a minute. How many members?
Around 20,000 throughout the year.
Okay, Jen, the other day I asked you how many members. What was the number?
The last I heard it was 12,000, but he says throughout the year, because
Right.
we have people
have
that
members
renew,
inspired,
it
members
goes up and down.
So 20,000 members involved in MDHA throughout the year.
And furthermore, what the hell's the difference?
Well,
Seriously.
That's a lot of people's voices that we were.
I would just like to know, I would just like to know.
Listen to the audience.
And that's why I put out a call to action asking for those 20,000 voices to be heard. What I've seen from Steve is a couple videos with a guy ranting on his couch. We are at the Capitol. We are working with our lobbyists. I've been on the phone the last 48 hours with every conservation organization. I wrote this joint letter. I put it in the senator's hands. It was distributed on the floor. I am doing that on behalf of MDHA.
So Jared,
He's
would you and
making
your
Facebook
team,
videos.
would you and your team sit down with the deer farmer team and go over kind of what we're doing tonight, but not with everyone in the crowd, just the two organizations, set up a meeting?
Yeah, I'm sure we can find a time to make that
Could we do
happen.
that? I mean,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to run it by my board. I'm not a board member, but.
Right, but Jen, you and I have had many good conversations. I appreciate you, Jen. How many times have I said I want a meeting with MDHA to you?
Well, I got in a lot of trouble early on in my career because I asked for a meeting between you and Craig Engwall.
And so, have I asked you how many times, do you think, 4 or 5 times? Would that be fair for meetings?
Yeah, and I asked Craig, and I believe I emailed Jared early on in his start of his new job.
And what did Jared tell you what happened?
And here we are tonight, Steve.
And I'm just asking what Jared told you in response to having a meeting with us.
I don't believe he replied. He was kind of busy having twins.
Can you understand how frustrating it is when my business is gonna die?
If you care about it so much, have you picked up the phone and called me? Have you
Stop.
personally,
Tell me about the president.
have you
Stop.
personally called me? Have you personally sent me an
president
email?
called you.
I'm
Our
asking if
president.
you personally
No,
have.
no, I
Because your
haven't.
president isn't on Facebook saying that they can't get a meeting with Jared. You are.
But-
You've never once picked up the
He's been
phone.
doing that for us.
Yeah,
And
so our president
we've
said
tried,
you would call.
Craig Engwall, we tried and we tried.
That's Craig Engwall.
I'm not Craig Engwall. Like I
But
said,
you understand where our frustration is coming from with MDHA.
one
We've
voicemail.
been-
My second day on the job.
Okay, I'm gonna look at MDHA the last 5 years. I mean, I've only been board member for a couple of years now, but we've been trying to get meetings with MDHA, the board of MDHA. We get nothing back.
And
Is
here
the-
we are
how would
tonight,
you-
and
if-
Jared is no Craig Engwall, let me tell you.
Okay, well, here's your chance to prove it. Sit down, we'll set up a meeting.
We got a board
We'll
meeting
get
on
something put
Saturday. I'll
together.
talk to the board.
because the board hasn't
But you
changed.
understand our frustration, right?
Totally.
And we were frustrated
You
with
and
Craig
Craig
Engwall
Engwall.
also.
So, here we are, Craig's gone, let's start fresh here.
Yes,
Let's get together, let's solve CWD together, because MDHA, DNR will not solve, any group is not gonna solve it. It's gonna take all of us.
And the deer farmers alone might not even solve it by
We
themselves.
have the test
in
bed,
the wild.
we
So
have the
need you
herds
guys in the
behind
wild
fence that are
get
needed
on board with
to
the
prove
deer
the
farmers
genetic
to work
resistance.
together.
You can't prove it in the wild.
That's what we want.
And
That's what we're all about.
And Steve, you're better than everybody.
And that's what we're about.
Excuse me a minute. Steve, you seem to point the finger at everybody else, okay? I'll make this real brief. Everybody else's problem, okay, except you.
So what, tell me what I
Just
did
a
wrong,
second,
tell me what I did wrong.
Just let me finish.
Tell me what I did wrong.
Just let me finish, okay? That's your motive, that's your stuff.
Thank you.
So be it.
Yep.
Going forward, you got a gentleman over there that's saying he wants to kiss and make up, okay?
Yep.
If we, let's say we wanna do that, going forward, what are you gonna do? Are you willing to cut the crap out of those Facebook shit? And all the stuff, the lies, everything that you said about MDHA?
act professional.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so.
Are you willing to do that?
Let me respond.
Simple answer.
Let me respond.
Simple answer, yes or no?
Can I respond?
Absolutely, yes or no?
Can I respond?
Yes or no?
Are you willing, I'll say yes on a condition. I'll say yes on a condition. No, are you willing to call off your lobbyist from trying to kill my farm? Are you willing to call your lobbyist, no, just listen, are you willing to call your lobbyist and tell him to stop attacking deer farms?
MDHA
You're
is a
not
grassroots
No, we have 20,000
organization.
members that want us
We are
to
supporting
have
our
more stupid
members,
farm regulations
20,000 members
throughout the
voted on
year.
it? 20,000 voters, 20,000 people unanimously agreed to shut down deer farms.
Are not unanimous. We
Oh.
had an
Regulate.
election.
Okay, then let's back this up. Why were you so emphatic to have a meeting when you know you weren't gonna change?
My question is, I'm hoping you'd call off your bulldog. That's simple.
No, we're answering to our
It's a
members.
give and take. We'll call off our bulldog if you guys call off yours.
As a
That's what he's
democratic
looking for.
organization,
I'm not gonna call him our
we
bulldog,
voice
but
our
that's what Steve is. That's Steve's
We do not, we don't cut you guys down at all.
You're destroying my
But
farm, my
when you
kids
explain
and
it that way,
kids.
DNR.
we're gonna try and
No,
sell
you're
you
lobbying
our
for the destruction of my farm. Wait, no, wait, let's just add, please. Your lobbyist is lobbying to run us out of business. Your lobbyist is posing restrictions on us that we've had no say in whatsoever. You wanna pass laws that we cannot conform to. We can't conform to, it'll be the end of my business. And you're standing here saying, we didn't do anything wrong, but you're gonna pass laws that totally destroy my business and I'll be out of business. And you're saying, Steve, would you be nice if we keep attacking you? I don't get the question.
Here's one of the laws, here's one of the laws that he's set up there and said he'd support. No more movement of our deer. I can't, Steve's good, he's gonna be okay, somewhere okay, he has his own preserve. I don't, I can't move my deer, I'm done.
Can't be certain.
So are you saying, Steve, you're gonna continue bashing MDHA on Facebook? Is that what you're saying?
Are you saying you're gonna continue trying to destroy my farm? That's just a question.
No, I'm not
We're
saying that
gonna
at all.
continue protecting the wild deer.
So you're gonna continue trying to destroy my farm?
We are gonna continue protecting the wild deer and doing everything that the science and every conservation
Science
organization.
according to your agenda.
Every
Science
conservation
according to your
organization in the
agenda.
state. Every organization in the state of Minnesota
But listen,
agrees
yeah,
that
but
this is what is best for our wild deer.
So
We're
I'm gonna say one
continue
last
doing
thing in
that. I gotta
response
put
to
my kids to bed.
last thing.
I have membership applications here. If anyone wants to become a member, support us in the amazing work we do on behalf of wild deer, deer hunters in the state of Minnesota. I will leave these on the back table. Please fill one out and
Have
send
a
them in.
voice.
Closing, no arguments.
No,
guys.
please, yes, we gotta do drawings
No,
quick.
We gotta just,
We gotta do
you're on the
it.
board, correct, of MDHA?